2018 is just around the corner, and it appears that there may be a budding right-wing rivalry. Republican Senators Rand Paul and Ted Cruz have already begun the face-off on foreign policy, potentially one of the top issues that will divide Republican candidates in the primaries. 30 of the 650 buses in the city of Boston are running as of right now, although school superintendent here at Blackstone Elementary School has told us that he will not be penalizing students for lateness or lack of attendance today. An event of this magnitude needs a hotel that can handle it. As you can see, at the moment I'm standing in the Ambassador Ballroom of the Omni Shoreham Hotel, a room that can hold up to 900 guests at one time. The total expectancy for the event is going to be at least 5,500 here at the Omni Shoreham, and of course, the hotel staff has been planning accordingly. Boston University Terriers tied 0-0 with Harvard Crimson for the first time since 1988. The two teams have faced off 45 times since 1951, making it a true hometown rivalry. Since the start of the school year, there have been 9 different robberies on or near the Boston University campus, 6 of which were armed. All of the victims have one thing in common: small electronics. It's instances like these that leave students feeling not so safe. Miami Dolphins player Richie Incognito has been suspended indefinitely after offensive lineman Jonathan Martin left the NFL team last week. The NFL is currently investigating the Miami Dolphins workplace and whether or not Incognito bullied Martin so badly that it drove him to leave the team. That's all for now. More news later right here and on NBCNews.com. Meet Steve Zaros, a college sophomore and, like many others his age, a student who uses Adderall as a study aid. All it took was a friend's suggestion.
I heard that Adderall's magic and stuff, so I was just like, oh, can I have one? So he gave me one. I got an A- on it, and it was the first A I'd gotten at college.
In 2010, over 18 million prescriptions were written for Adderall and related drugs. That's about a 14% increase from the number of prescriptions written in 2009. Today, drug companies face shortages. It all comes down to the pressure to succeed.
Now you have to get a 3.5 at a really good school and have be on an e-board of 2 different clubs and have multiple jobs and internship, and even then you still might not get a job.
Dr. Lorraine Wolf, the Director of Disability Services at Boston University, says Steve is not alone. She estimates that as many as a quarter of students 18 and older have at least tried it.
College students perceive this as giving them the edge to get those A's, to stay up all night and, write that paper rather than handing it in late.
And when they're pressed for time, users say it works.
You can just read a textbook for hours and it doesn't get boring and you're so focused. It helps you just zone in and focus for as long as you need to.
But Zaros took it one step further when he chose to write an academic paper on the subject.
Yeah, the topic of the paper was the effects of Adderall and everyone should get it or something like that.
We have, these days a pill for everything, so why not a smart pill?
And quite frankly, it's available and fairly easy to get diagnosed, so why not use it?
It's a pretty slippery boundary and fluid to the point where the exact diagnostic criteria simply don't exist.
But with every drug comes a risk, something most students don't consider.
People can rely on it to the point where they'll feel like, I'm not going to be able to study unless I have this extra boost.
A drug classified Schedule II by the DEA, the same category as cocaine, is nothing to be taken lightly.
They can produce heart irregularities, seizures, psychosis with high doses, accidental death.
Though he is still not completely sure that he has ADD, today Zaros has a prescription.
Once I see what I could do with it, it just kind of was why am I struggling with this, and then not getting any results when I could spend a quarter of the time and get a better grade?
In Steve's opinion, anyone can benefit.
Adderall is just a modern miracle that makes everyone smarter.
For BU TV 10, this is Alexa Dragoumis reporting. A freelance journalist in his 20s, Daniel Turner worries about not having health care.
Because I'm part-time, I don't have any benefits, and so I'm hopeful that in October I'll be able to open enroll into the Affordable Care Act programs.
Starting this fall, new healthcare exchanges set up under the Affordable Care Act will open. These exchanges offer government-regulated private insurance plans, a way for consumers to comparison shop for insurance from private providers. Criticism has been widespread as opponents argue that the new law may cause costs to rise and quality of care to suffer. Even so, the White House's goal is to sign up 7 million uninsured Americans, including nearly 3 million young adults like Daniel. Experts say that for the new law to be effective, broad participation, particularly among young adults, who make up nearly a third of America's uninsured, is crucial. Under Obamacare, Americans will be required to purchase insurance or face fines, starting at as little as $95 in 2014, climbing to almost $700 by 2016.
And there's a concern that when faced with those higher premiums, many young people may simply say, we'll pay the penalty and wait and buy coverage after we need it. And if that happens, it's going to increase costs for everyone, young and old.
While the opt-out fee may cost less up front, the risks could mean paying thousands for coverage out of pocket later on. Jen Mashori is Deputy Director of Young Invincibles, an advocacy group trying to encourage young people to enroll this fall.
It can really bankrupt someone, and so medical debt is a huge issue. And so having an insurance plan that actually protects you from those really high-level catastrophic events is important.
President Obama's health care law remains controversial as Republicans continue their attempts to dismantle the legislation. Despite those efforts, an all-out campaign is underway to boost enrollment, especially among young adults. And while big decisions loom for Daniel and others like him to buy insurance from these new exchanges or pay the opt-out fee, their choices could set the premiums for every age group. Alexa Dragoumis, NBC News, Washington. College sports bring excitement and community to many campuses across the nation. But do the big men on campus receive preferential treatment in classrooms?
You can't treat a student differently, period. It's an NCAA violation. So I think it's more perception. Now, what goes on underground, I can't say.
And what goes on underground is exactly what has people talking.
It was last fall when Harvard first confirmed the cheating scandal. Well, today, in a campus-wide email, the Ivy League school is acknowledging dropping the hammer on those involved.
The school held a news conference and said it learned of possible academic misconduct involving a former undergraduate tutor and student athletes on the football team.
At Boston University, there are also a few extra services for student athletes.
We have academic, I guess you could say coaches that oversee their academic progression here on campus. I know I would love to have an academic coach, but that's just not something that the average student is afforded.
Phil DiCarlo, the Boston University Athletic Department advisor, serves as a second advisor solely for varsity athletes. And an average meeting covers more than just graduation requirements.
We know who their faculty members are, we know when their exams are, we know when their papers are due, and we would just talk about that. You know, we see you have an exam coming up, you're going to be traveling this week. How are you going to study for that exam? How is your preparation going? You know, those types of things we talk about. If they're struggling in a course, we'll certainly get them help, whether it's tutoring or some other type of assistance on campus.
And at no extra charge, tutors are available at Student Athlete Services. Hannah Matticue, one of the tutors, says she meets with some athletes as much as once or twice a week.
A lot of times I'll help them go through reading and outline the specific important points, or we outline a paper together so that they just understand like form of a paper, or I edit paper.
Though many student athletes frequent this center, they are also able to find help in the classroom.
The professors have an understanding of understanding and appreciation of what a Division I athlete's life is like. So they're willing to work with them and be as flexible as they can.
The College of General Studies, a 2-year college that places students into their school of choice upon completion of a core program, is known for supporting its student-athlete population. CGS divides its students into teams of about 100 students each, and these teams share the same schedule of classes and the same professors. Because of their practice schedules, athletes are often placed on the same teams.
When I was in CGS, most of the people in my class were athletes. You know, some people were like regular students, as to say.
Thomas found his professors in CGS to be very accommodating.
They kind of tell us what's on the test. They don't give us a study guide. It's up to us to make our own study guides, but you know, they tell us what's on the test. They help us a lot because sometimes, as I said, we can't make it to class. So, you know, we go to like office hours, or they make up their own office hours and teach us like how they would in class.
But not all CGS students had the same experience. Alex Shadrow, a CGS graduate who is not involved in athletics, says that when it came to midterms and finals, she often compared her study guides to those of the students on the, quote, athlete teams.
When I was looking at it, I was actually kind of confused because I was like, really? They're going to ask about this question? But I remember like when I was on the test, I was like, oh, they did ask that question. Like we never even went over that in my class.
The discrepancies between teams are what have the average student population at CGS talking.
I really remember there just being really athlete-heavy teams and everyone wanting to be on that team because supposedly it was easier. It was just like, if you're on the athlete team, you got lucky.
Despite the scheduling, Godnick says that CGS is doing their best to get rid of the athlete-heavy teams.
Changed a couple of our schedules so it would disperse the athletes a little bit more, because it was just getting a little bit heavy, and there was an energy. They all knew each other because they're a club essentially, and so we wanted to split them so that they would get to know other people.
And it goes both ways. Sometimes student athletes feel that others on campus view them as different. Jake Moscatel, a Boston University senior, was pulled onto the varsity team from the BU club hockey team.
I remember last year when I joined the team, a bunch of my friends thought that I was going to stop hanging out with them. I was like, what are you talking about? They're like, well, you joined the varsity team. I was like, we're still friends, right?
Moscatel is aware of the stereotypes associated with student athletes.
You know, maybe I fall into, the category, I got long hair, I'm wearing a backwards snapback hat. I mean, I guess I look like a stereotypical hockey player, but I mean, in terms of like the way that we act, I think we kind of keep to ourselves and people kind of just make assumptions from that.
After the 2012 BU hockey scandal, in which 2 players were accused of sexual assault, the university is working to better integrate its student athletes with the, quote, regular population to avoid creating a sense of entitlement among athletes on campus. McCoy points to American culture as a possible cause of this social divide.
I think it's a greater problem of how we treat athletes in this nation. You look at how we treat football players in the NFL, or basketball players, professional athletes, college athletes. They're always on television for something. They're always glorified for their gifts and talents, but they're set apart.
There's no doubt that student athletes are an asset to colleges and universities, but when does additional academic support become an accommodation for success? That's the question that leaders at institutions across America have to be able to answer. For BUTV 10, I'm Alexa Dragoumis.